In today's video, I am going to share how to use hearts for things other than love, and this video is all about sports. Hi, I'm Katie Taylor at scrappinkaty.com, where I show you how to preserve your family's memories through the art of scrapbooking. So I have this paper collection from Simple Stories and then these photos of our son's recent milestone of hitting 1,300 points. Now, I have pulled out the die cuts for the Made with Love, as well as some other Stampin' Up! Stamps and die cuts that I might use on this layout. Now, here's a look again at the Simple Stories. It's all about basketball. You've got some stickers. You've got some, well, those might not be Simple Stories. I think those are recollections, maybe. But you've just got various patterns, and I'm just looking through these, much like I do all the time, to try to see which ones I want to use on my layout. Now, because the majority of this layout is going to be filled with photos, I just want to be looking at patterns that I can use the heart die cuts on. And I'm not going to be using the back sides of these papers. Those are the ones that like have the basketball court, so on and so forth. I want to save those patterns for other things. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull out these two hearts from the Made with Love die cuts. Now, there was this piece of paper that I went ahead and cut to a 4-inch square. And then also I cut some of the cut aparts. There's 4x6s and 3x4s. And all I'm doing is holding up this small heart to those patterns as well as the large heart to see if any of those will fit. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat this process. Don't be afraid to cut either partial hearts or definitely cut the heart at a side. You can see there that that smaller heart fits on that little sentiment piece. And then I'm just going to put away the ones that I'm sure that I'm not going to use, and then go ahead and start die cutting the other ones. Now, what I do know is that I want that all of the basketballs, I want that on the large heart. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. Now, this particular heart does have stitching around the edge, which usually lends itself to more of a feminine touch. But I think once I'm done with this layout, you'll see that it's really not feminine at all. This is the one where I was telling you, don't be afraid to do your heart at an angle. Now, this particular heart, it has a bottom sentiment that I'm cutting off, but I am going to use a sticker to kind of hide that part, and then that way it'll just play on those words. Now, on this pattern, I am positioning that smaller heart where the slam dunk will be cut out, again, at an angle. And then I'm going to look at some of the other die cuts that I pulled. Now, I did go ahead and pull the Boardwalk Fun, and I have created a template using the little ticket. And it's always good to have those die cuts as a template, and that way you can put them either over stickers or other stamps, and you can see which ones fit. So I've gone ahead and I've die cut everything and cut to size my pieces. And I am just going to assemble this bottom portion of the pattern paper. I love this wording on the paper, even though a lot of it's going to be hidden. It's very basketball oriented. Now on this 1,300 photo, I am going to mat it with some white. I did use just a 4x6 and trimmed it down. And then I'm going to create a true 4x6 mat out of some black cardstock. Because the bottom team photo is 4x6 and these two photos were printed on a 5x7, they are slightly smaller than 4x6. But that's going to give me an opportunity to use this shoot sticker on the right side of the photo well. And then I'm going to go ahead and decide to do a flip flap instead of this photo. So while I've kind of tacked that down for right now, just to kind of line up the team photo, and then that way I can start to line up my embellishments. This is where I decide to do a flip flap so I can include the photo of our son with all of our family that came in for the celebration. Now, behind those photos, I'm going to use just white cardstock, and this is where I'm going to journal. It's going to be hidden by the flip flap, which is going to allow me to kind of write some sentimental things. And then he will go over that shoot a little bit. Now, as far as the heart and all of the little pieces, I'm going to start pulling out the ones that kind of go or that I want to use. Now, not only did this collection come with stickers, but it also came with ephemera. And so that is what I am dealing with right now. And I'm just kind of picking the ones that I think I might want to use. And then I am going to pull out the sticker sheet here in just a second. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and decide where I want to do my stamping. There are 2 images from this stamp set, and this stamp set is called Gears, and no, it's not. That's for another project that I'm doing. I don't know. I will drop the stamp set down below in the comments. But I kind of wanted to see where my little embellishments were going to go. So I've layered those on top of each other, and then I'm just going to start kind of tacking them down. Now, this little basket, I do want that right edge really straight with the left edges of my photos. And then I'm going to pull out this kind of, it's kind of got a thatch pattern to it. And I'm using a close to my heart color called charcoal. Because that strip, the black with the circle stars, it has a gray in it that's almost like charcoal. So I'm going to stamp that, and then I'm going to pull out Stampin' Up's color Timid Tiger, and there's this little grouping of stars, and I'm going to just ink that up and stamp that a few places. And then I'll come back in later and fill in with those 2 stamped images as well. So this little grouping of the hearts and the basketball goal, I am going to attach it to my layout using some 3D foam. I have this sheet of dimensionals that literally I've used everything except the outer edges. So this is a perfect opportunity to go ahead and cut those into little strips and then just adhere those to the back of this little grouping. And that's going to allow me to just get rid of this sheet, as well as just kind of adhere these down with a little bit of dimension. Now, y'all know I love 3D foam. If you like to save your dimensionals, you do not have to use as much as I do. I just love for those pieces to be sturdy, especially on my cards. Layouts don't matter that much because it is behind a memory protector. But as a card maker, I also like to make sure that nothing kind of sags when I give those cards away. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down. And then I can go ahead and adhere this team photo right below that top photo. So now for the top photo, again, I am going to be using a flip flap, but I'm going to do that at the very end of this video. So make sure you stick around and I'll show you how I did that. Now for these tickets, I am going to use that same stamped image that I inked up in charcoal. And I'm going to just kind of add some background stamping to these. I am masking off the ends of the tickets. This ticket kind of has like a perforated edge on both ends. And so I'm just going to stamp the middle and then the top and the bottom of these. Because the stickers and stuff that I am going to use, it's going to kind of hide that unstamped middle of those. And then, of course, I fill in with the little grouping of stars inked up in the Timid Tiger. Now, there are a lot of oranges going on in this layout, as well as blues. The blue in these sticker sheets are definitely not the blue in our team colors, but I think in the end, it really looks good. Now for these stickers, I am going to pull off several of these, and I am just removing the sticky backing by using my anti-static pouch that's usually used for heat embossing. If you'll just pounce that on the back of your stickers, it removes that sticky, but not so much that you can't add 3D foam tape, which is what I'm going to do to the majority of these. So I have these 2 stickers, and I know that I want them to go down below the team photo. So again, I'm pulling out some dimensionals, again, the outer edges of some of these sheets, and I'm going to attach this little sticker on the ticket that is portrait, and that says keep calm and shoot on. And then I definitely thought that I wanted that big square slam dunk as well as another sticker that I ended up pulling off, and that's taking it to the hoop. Because of his 1300 point celebration, I wanted a lot of stickers or embellishments that had to do with shooting. So I have this little bubble that says, I love this game. And I think I'm going to put it right there in the grouping. And I think it anchors that little heart down at the bottom that says shoot for the stars. And then so for that other ticket, what I'm going to do is I am going to end up using the heart with the slam dunk. I found this basketball that basically creates movement, and I'm going to put it up over the photo up at the top, and that's also going to just kind of finish out that little grouping of stamps. So here's where I'm trying to figure out the slam dunk. And then I remember that I have that heart that says slam dunk. So I am going to end up using that. Now for this heart, remember I cut off some of the words, so I've just attached that little ephemera piece. And then I am going to, this is where I think, oh, I can use this one. So I'm going to add some 3D foam to the back of it and then go ahead and get it attached to that ticket that's going kind of landscape. Now, my goal is to always have the words on these hearts that are kind of crooked. You want to have them straight on your layout. So you can see up by the goal and the biggest heart, those words are straight. And then I am making sure that slam dunk is straight as well. Now, to finish this layout off, I need to start working or looking at these groupings as well as kind of consider my title. I know that I wanted my title in that big blank spot at the top left. And I knew that it was going to kind of be elongated. So I can go ahead and add these stars. There are black, orange, and then, of course, that blue color. And I'm just kind of sprinkling those around, not only the big grouping with the big heart, but at the top as well. And then I decide to go ahead and add another little blue star down by those bottom tickets. Just kind of brings it all together. Usually I do odd numbers, but I feel like that big grouping on the left of the photos, I feel like those are kind of one. So it still creates that triangle and then it's kind of like 3 stars. So I did decide to use the sticker basketball instead of the ephemera. It was a little bit longer and I liked that it had a lot of orange. So it brought that big orange from the bottom up to the top. I really love these flags. I was trying to use them so much, but I think I'm going to have to save those for another project because I have tons of basketball photos. So that will be easy to do. Now, this sticker sheet does have a lot of little strip sentiments. So that's what I'm doing is I'm looking at those and I'm going to be adding those all around. So I've gone ahead and I've added one by the team photo and it says one team, one win. And then I've added one up above the basketball title and it says eat, sleep, hoops, repeat. And then I'm going to add one under, I guess I'm going to add one over here first, or a couple. It says the love of the game and play hard or go home. And then I'm going to add one that says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take on the actual photo of my son. So remember when I said I wanted to include a lot of sentiments or stickers that had to do with shooting because that's what we're celebrating. So I loved that one on that photo of his 1300. So at this point, I'm pretty much happy with everything. I'm going to start working on the flip flap. I did end up having 1 star left. Well, I have a couple of stars left, but I really liked this little black star down there. So I put that there. And then here is where I have to kind of figure out Not only where my journaling is going to go, I decided to add a little border of those stars. At first, I thought that my flip flap would show the bottom of this. That's why I added it. But since it doesn't, I kind of like the look of it. And then I started adding some stamped hearts over this pattern paper. So I'm just going to add that here and there. Again, this is another part of that, a lot of different oranges going on. But in the end, I think that those stamped hearts down at the bottom, it just really adds to the layout and the texture of all of those words down there. So now for this flip flap, again, it's a 4x6 flip flap, and I told y'all that this photo is not 4x6. It's more like 5x3.5. So I'm just going to close the top of this flip flap by adding some tear tape on the inside. And then that is going to allow that photo to stay in place and not move a lot. Because once I actually add it to my layout base, I want to make sure that it stays where I want it to stay. So I did put a strip up over the photo. It says it doesn't get easier, you get better. And then I wanted this little blank spot, because the photo's smaller, I wanted it to have something. So I put baller. And then I'm going to kind of take a look at this. And once I get this adhered down, I am going to realize that because of all the blankness and the additional tape that I had to add, I'm going to have to add additional pieces. Now, for my flip flap, I like to put it directly onto my layout base, and then I like to cut my memory protector. I have many videos on how to do this. I will leave those linked down below, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. One of the reasons I do that is because sometimes over time, those flip flaps get really heavy, and if it's not anchored to your layout base, if it's just put on top of your memory protector, a lot of times it'll kind of pull and weigh down on that memory protector. So I had to add those stars to hide the tape that was on the inside of the flip flap, closing it. And then I needed to add another strip on the back side to hide the back of the sticker that was attached. And so that one says, "The harder the win, the sweeter the victory." And then I decided to go ahead and add a strip behind this baller. Now, this is kind of a larger strip that kind of matches the black and the circle stars. But because the backside is going to show, I went ahead and decided to do those same stamped images. So I've got the charcoal kind of background, and then I'm going to take these orange stars and I'm going to stamp as well. I'm trying to keep these stars where the little gaps between the A's and the L's and the E kind of will show through. Now to adhere this, I am going to use some tear tape. So I'm going to just add tear tape behind the letters, and that's going to ensure that you can't see the tear tape through the little flip flap. So I've torn that, and then I'm just kind of creasing that down with my nail, and then I'm just going to remove the backing of the tear tape, and then that way I can just adhere this little strip down. Now remember, the stamped images will go down first, and then those are what you're going to see when it's closed. So let me pick this up and show you what I'm talking about, and then you flip it open and you will be able to see all of the journaling. Here are some close-ups of this layout. I'll leave everything linked down below if it is still available. And remember that hearts aren't only for Valentine's or all that lovey-dovey stuff. You can use hearts for sports as well as some other things. Be watching my social media for those extra ideas. Thanks so much for stopping by and watching. I hope y'all have a wonderful week.